also looking to expand its business scope and customer base. Finally, the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission pushing back a decision to allow a Bitcoin exchange-traded fund from Valkyrie Digital Assets, according to a Tuesday filing. The revised date is now August 10th instead of the original date of June 26th. This comes after the SEC already delayed a decision on the Van Eck Bitcoin Trust for the second time last week. So let's have a live look at Bitcoin. The CoinDesk Bitcoin price XBX index is currently trading at $33,328. Bitcoin is slightly up about 1.5% over the past 24 hours. The most reliable reference prices for institutions since 2014 are now published under the CoinDesk brand, trusted globally as a leader in crypto news, events, and data. The chart of the day is brought to you by Crypto.com, the world's fastest growing crypto app. So the total open interest in the Bitcoin futures market is sitting at over $11 billion, down from about 60% from its mid-April peak of over $27 billion. Arcane research saying the downward trading indicates that institutional investors are being cautious at the moment. It also notes that 3-month futures in Bitcoin are in backwardation, meaning they are trading at a discount to current spot prices. That is generally perceived to be a bearish signal. Digital asset manager 2Prime telling CoinDesk that institutional interest has waned. While institutions remain hungry for crypto as a whole, their ability to step in is limited by the recent volatility in the market. Some note the decline in futures activity indicates that other market participants are also stepping back. But as things stabilize, 2Prime is optimistic that institutions will buy the dip. And joining us now to discuss is Marc Lopresti, co-managing director and member of the board at the Strategic Funds and an alternative asset manager. Welcome to the show, Marc. So just want to get your comment on your outlook for Bitcoin. We saw a precipitous fall yesterday, but it looks to be bouncing back. How long will this last, or do we have more to fall coming forth?
Well, thanks for having me, Christine. And certainly anybody that trades this asset class, Bitcoin in particular, is no stranger to volatility. And I am of the strong opinion that if you understand what drives the volatility, you can hang on and actually make money in this market. I think a big indicator, obviously, was the death cross yesterday, and see how we came out of that death cross with that moving average 50-day versus the 200-day. And I think a lot of what's keeping the institutions on the sidelines, Christine, is a combination not only, of course, of this volatility, but there's a couple of other big factors that are driving those institutions to keep their powder dry, as it were, in terms of either getting into the asset class or increasing their existing allocation to the asset class. And that really comes down to two things. One, regulation, not just internationally. And I think China, while it's a big price driver, there's a heck of a lot of noise there. And I'd be happy to give you some more commentary on that if you like. But I think a lot of the institutions are also looking. We got a new sheriff in town with Gensler at the helm of the SEC. What happened, as you noted, another Bitcoin ETF put on hold for now, not forever, temporarily. But until you see some of this clarity, the institutions are going to continue to stay on the sidelines. And the other thing I'll mention is ESG, green, Bitcoin mining, right? The excuse, China's excuse for cracking down on crypto, we're burning too much coal, we're polluting the environment, that's a bunch of hogwash. In my opinion, it's about currency control. But the institutions are definitely watching to see if the industry will come into ESG standards.
Well, Marc, we're hearing from Jeremy Grantham as well as the Qatar Sovereign Wealth Fund, and they're saying that Bitcoin's fall is having a bit of a chilling effect in their view of Bitcoin. So you mentioned ESG, you mentioned regulation, but what about the volatility? Or do you see some investors in the institutional level who see this as a buying opportunity instead?
Well, there's no doubt that there are institutions that are actually doubling down. You saw MicroStrategy yesterday just talking about enhancing their position. They're making money on the vol. That's not for everyone. But for institutions that understand how to trade the volatility, they can actually make money in this kind of environment. It's the other two factors that I just mentioned that for institutions that have these considerations in their mandate, Christine, that are going to continue to keep them on the sidelines. But that's changing. And that's part of why I think that Bitcoin still has a way to go to the upside for 2021.
And what are you advising your clients? Are you seeing interest from your clients in investing in riskier assets like Bitcoin?
Well, so we don't provide individualized investment advice. I also spent a lot of years as a lawyer, so I have to give that little disclaimer. When people ask me casually, and they do all the time, with a lot of that FOMO kicking in, is it too late? Should I get in? Should I not? I tell people that they should have somewhere around a 3% allocation to cryptocurrency, Bitcoin primarily, secondarily Ethereum. Hold on to it and don't look at it for 6 to 7 months unless you're a professional trader. But there's so much still to come. We have the largest generational transfer of wealth in the history of this country, Christine. That is from people that don't know the asset class to those that do, that don't have wallets to those that do. That plus scarcity, plus institutional adoption, plus increased regulation, which is a good thing, I would argue, is going to continue to drive it to the upside. But it's going to be a rocky road on the way.
All right, you mentioned regulation. We see that China is cracking down on mining in the country as well as potentially trading on among exchanges and telling banks not to allow transfers to exchanges. So what kind of effect will that have in the crypto markets in your view?
Well, so it's going to have a temporary effect to the downside dramatically, as we've seen as this news has come out in recent days. But what folks have to understand, and this is part of what frustrates me, is are we really that surprised? It's sort of a, snake, why did you bite me type of an approach. China is about maintaining control through regulation of its currency. China was one of the first to adopt a sovereign coin. We heard about that a month or so ago. So I think it's going to drive some short-term volatility. It's going to drive some pressure to the downside. I hope we see some ancillary benefit in terms of bringing the ESG and the clean, renewable mining requirements that a lot of institutions, some of which that you've talked about, are looking for to check another one of the boxes before they allocate to the strategy. But man, I really think people should think of China as noise. It's painful noise, but it's noise in the short term, and none of us should be surprised.
Marc, what's your end of year outlook for Bitcoin?
Are you asking me for a price target?
I am. I am.
Well, I was sitting around a dinner table about 5 days ago with my friend Tom Lee and a couple of other great prognosticators and followers of guys much smarter, maybe not as good looking, but much smarter than me. I hesitate to give price targets. Could you see 100 by the end of the year? You could. I think it's going to be south of that, but it's going to be a hell of a lot higher than where we are today. Right. And that's as much as you're going to get out of me, Christine.
You're hanging out with Tom Lee. You're going to be bullish. All right. Thank you very much, Marc, for joining me this afternoon.
Absolutely my pleasure.
All right. That was Strategic Funds Co-Managing Director Marc Lopresti. Coming up, we'll dive into the latest on what's going on in El Salvador.
Find me. At any time.
Welcome back. My next guest was recently in El Salvador as part of a delegation of crypto entrepreneurs that are looking to expand Bitcoin adoption in the Central American country. Joining us now to discuss is Foundation for Interwallet Operability Managing Director Luke Stokes. Luke, welcome to the show. So El Salvador has adopted Bitcoin as legal tender. You were there recently. What was your experience like in El Salvador?
Thank you so much for having me, Christine. It was incredible. It actually kind of changed my mind as to what a government can do. I've been labeled a voluntarist and sometimes an anarchist, and I know many in the Bitcoin community, myself included, we're not the biggest fans of centralization or centralized governance. And their mission and their enthusiasm, their excitement with this Bitcoin law was like nothing I've ever seen. And many of the members of the group there, some have worked with governments in the past, had a similar sense that this was it felt like a group of entrepreneurs who were pushing forward with something that they were very passionate about and they believed in. And that was very exciting. And also to hear them talk about the people and their desire for this to be something great for the people, financial inclusion, financial access. It was a really amazing event.
From what I understand, it was put together rather quickly. You guys went down there, but what was your sense of how this bill will get actually rolled out going forward? What happens now?
One of the things that we kind of felt like is that it was almost like they were pitching to VCs. As I mentioned, they were really serious about this. And part of the process for the kind of official delegation that we were, and they told us, they said, you're the first official delegation since COVID. And they were showing us their max vaccinations facility that they time for dealing with the COVID response. And they did this as a way to say, look what we can accomplish. We're the team that did this, and we're the same group that's going to be rolling out the Bitcoin law. And they also would say, we're at day 82, we're at day 81. And they made it very clear this is a 90-day window according to the law, and they're moving very, very quickly. And it
90
really was surprising.
days, that's a short window. I mean, what kind of challenges ahead do you foresee going forward to figure out how to implement this bill?
Well, there's a lot of education that obviously has to happen. There's many people that have been on the ground in some cases for years. Bitcoin Beach is a great example. People that have been pushing for adoption and education of Bitcoin in El Salvador. And there's also a call to action for the community. The Bitcoin community, they're being asked to show up. They're being told, we need help, show up, show us how this is done, help us with wallets, help us with exchanges, help us with mining, help us with everything involved in the whole ecosystem. And although it is a really short timeline, after what I saw, I have an incredible confidence that they're going to move quickly and they're going to take this very seriously because they've already done similar things within that government.
So we had Peter McCormick on. He's a passionate Bitcoin maximalist. He's there in El Salvador as well, but he's very concerned that the delegation was basically a gang of opportunists that all the hard work was done and now others are in the crypto industry are seeking to push their own agendas. Is there any substance to these claims? What do you say to those critics?
Well, I wish he was there. I wish he was there with the government, with us. It was an incredible opportunity for us to support what's going on there. And I don't agree with that it was people pushing altcoins. There was no mention of altcoins. It was all about Bitcoin. It was all about the work that's already been done. It was all about supporting their efforts. And so I think personally, this is a moment I can remember talking about in bitcointalk.org like more than 8 years ago about what would it be like if a government actually reached out to us and actually cared about making something accessible to their citizens like Bitcoin. And so it was an incredible moment. And I choose to focus on the positive, choose to focus on those that want to support Bitcoin and want to make it accessible. One of the things that they kept mentioning was not just statistics, but the human beings, the actual humans involved with this and how it's going to impact their lives. They would mention the things they've done, for example, to help with crime and other different situations like that. But they kept bringing it back to the individual human and what it's going to do for families and financial inclusion, how 70% of the people there don't have banking access. And so they're looking at this as a complete solution for their citizens. And I'm very, very excited about that. And I think the entire community should come together to support that.
So, Luke, in what ways is your organization looking to facilitate Bitcoin adoption in El Salvador?
One of the ideas that I had, actually, I tweeted out an idea. We humanize cryptocurrency with what we're working on with the Foundation for Interwallet Operability. It's a decentralized consortia of wallets and exchanges that are trying to create a human face to what can otherwise be a confusing Bitcoin address. And it's just a wallet handle, essentially. And the idea was, what if we were to give everyone in El Salvador their own wallet handle? And this could be working in multiple wallets, whatever wallet wants to support the protocol. It's an open, decentralized business model. It's a Cayman nonprofit. So there's not like a profit motive here for us. It's about making it easier. And so I tweeted it out and someone on Brock's team saw it. And the next thing I know, a week later, I'm in El Salvador. One of the ideas that we had as a group was that fortune favors the bold. And we feel that those in El Salvador are being very bold right now to take incredible steps for their country. And so it's just one of many ideas. I represent, as I said, many different wallets and exchanges that are part of the coalition that's part of FIO protocol. And there are many other great projects that are working on making crypto easier to use. I think it's actually really, really important that we don't undervalue usability within blockchain and crypto, because if Bitcoin is too confusing to use, people will turn to central bank digital currencies. They'll turn to centralized solutions, and they'll give up their self-sovereign control of their own value and wealth.
Well, on that note, we had economist Steve Hanke on earlier today. He says that this is not a legal tender bill, but a forced tender. And he takes issue with people having to be forced to accept Bitcoin payments if they should be allowed to choose. But what were your thoughts on that?
And I've heard that argument. I think it's certainly a concern. And one of the points that was made to me, I thought that was a good one, is that they're not being forced to hold Bitcoin. And they're not, as an individual citizen, you're not being forced to use Bitcoin. It's really just a matter of, if you're a vendor or a government agency, you have to be able to accept Bitcoin. And as part of the law, you can swap it right to USD as part of what they're trying to roll out. So I hear those concerns. I think for those like myself that wants everything to be voluntary and all currency acceptance to be voluntary, I do see some concerns there. But I also think that it's an incredible opportunity, because if they kind of don't force it a little bit, it probably wouldn't happen. So I feel like it's an experiment, and we need a lot more experiments to see what can happen. Because certainly I think, and most who support Bitcoin probably agree with me, it's better than what they've been dealing with in the past and what many countries in Latin America are dealing with now.
Well, Luke, really looking forward to seeing those developments and appreciate your time on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Christine. Really appreciate it.
Likewise. All right. That was Luke Stokes from the foundation of Interwallet Operability. And that's it for All About Bitcoin. I'm your host, Christine Lee. Join us tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. in New York for First Mover, your first look at the day's global crypto news headlines. You're watching CoinDesk TV.